In today's video, I talk about how I have at least a 60% profit margin on most of the products on my Shopify store. In my Shopify business, I run an e-commerce mix of in-house stocking stuff. Behind you is all my stocked product and some drop shipping. And I truly do maintain about a 60% profit margin on the majority of product that I'm selling. And in today's video, I'm going to break that all down so you understand how you can do that yourself, how you can build a business around increasing your profit margins, and ultimately get the most value out of every single sale you make. Because what gurus are not telling you is that you have to have high profit margins to be successful in making money online, whether it's drop shipping, Shopify, a mixture of the two, whatever you're doing. You've got to have high profit margins or all of your time is going to be wasted, because the risk to reward over the long term doesn't make any sense, and 1, 2, 3 mess ups could sink the entire ship. Now, if you've got more profit margin, you're more insulated and you're just making more money. If you're not already subscribed to the video, please consider subscribing. It's completely free. You'll get the most information for your long-term growth journey when it comes to personal finance and entrepreneurship. Also, please like the video. It's free to do and it really helps me produce content for you guys. Okay, like I said, my current Shopify business, and it's just a business, right? It's an e-commerce business. It's split between drop shipping products from other manufacturers and my own in-house products. Behind you guys are shelves and shelves of products that I've designed and manufactured, which represent the majority of the products sold through my store. Now, I do have a lot of dropship products, but they represent only high-priced products. So although my margins are low, my dollar amount is high. Fortunately, I'm in a niche where even when I'm drop shipping, my takeaway or the differential on the product is in the hundreds of dollars for the most part. There some aren't there. So even though I might have only a 10% margin, I'm still in the hundreds of dollars. Now, the rest of the stuff that I make in-house don't necessarily have that dollar value behind what the total sale is, but then I'm getting a 60 to 75% profit margin specifically on my in-house stuff, so that even though my dollar amount or my total sale value isn't super high, my profit margin is still high enough, and it gives me so many other aspects to the business and freedoms because I've designed it around that. So let me break it down exactly. Let me break down everything you need to do to copy that system, because it truly is. It's a system in which you can develop and change, whether it's on your store that exists right now that you've already done, or you're trying to get into this business and you want to understand how to do this from the get-go. So it comes down to 3 main pillars. So when you're like, I'm going to either change what I'm doing right now because I already have a business, or I want to get into the e-commerce game, there are 3 main pillars of what you need to do to have very, very high profit margins. So first off, it is market and customer research. Might sound dumb, might sound something that it's tough to do, but where this comes from is understanding where the market is and how hard is it going to be to sell a product to your consumer base. Now, you might be a little confused. The reality is, with most e-commerce, sales are happening because of sales. Now, I say sales and I'm using 2 meanings of the word. Transactions, which is the sale of your good to a customer, are happening because of a discount through marketing. So you need to understand, with your market and customer research, is that the only way that products are being sold? If that's the case, we need to understand that at the get-go. This is where most entrepreneurs fail when they're setting up the pricing and their business and product selection, is they forget to realize that they're always going to have to discount their products through their marketing scheme to be able to make the sale in the first place, because that is the norm within the industry, and not having something on sale is going to be a major barrier to make the sale. Even if you're the lowest priced product, not having it on sale is a problem. So you need to understand at the get-go, because most people don't actually calculate that in. If you think I'm crazy, I do a lot of consulting here, and I can tell you from the volume of numbers of just looking at what people are doing, that is the case almost in every single situation. So doing market and customer research at the get-go and understanding what do these sales even look like, because even if you're doing product research and you spend 5 minutes just looking at what it's being sold on Amazon, that doesn't give you the full story. Especially if you find other people doing it in the social media sites that you're competing against, you don't actually know what volume they're doing at 10% off versus Black Friday when it's 30% off. Maybe that 30% off is 99% of the business for the entirety of this product over the 12 months. You just don't know. So what you need to do is monitor that and research that and look back at the history, look at interactions, look at all those things. You need to understand, like, let's say you're selling through Facebook. Look where comments are heavy. Look where interactions are up. That means the company spent more on advertising. Did they have a bigger sale? Was it around Christmas? Start to get these insights, because most people just say, oh, my competitor's selling this at this price. You don't know whether this season represents 1% of their sales or it's an equal spread. I can tell you from my business and every other business that I've interacted with, it's never equal. And not all businesses are like heavy on Black Friday or heavy around Christmas. They're all different, but it's important to understand when are the products being sold and what is the competition actually selling them for. So that's step number one, is understanding that, because that's actually going to play a massive chunk. That could be 10, 20, 30% of the margin that you're already kicking in. So if you've picked out a product and you've got a 20% profit margin, have you baked in that you might need to sell it for 20% off and you're going to make net zero? You won't make any money, right? The next step is product selection itself. You need to make sure you have a relatively high cost product, right? It doesn't make sense to be playing with a couple dollars. You need to be playing with, at the minimum, my rule of thumb, every single product that I sell, I need to make at least 1 hour of my hourly rate that I self-define from that product. When I'm starting a business, I call myself an hourly rate that's pretty low. I say about $20 or $30, because that's what the reality is. That's the average income over the United States, or it's actually probably higher than that, but that's what I call it right now. If I were to go through my trade and just say I'm going to freelance, I could charge between $50 and $150 an hour. So that's not realistic here, but the goal is to overall, when you're growing your business, to be able to scale it above, and right now I'm scaled way above that. But when I start a business, I try to value my time at 20 or 30 bucks an hour, because if I ever needed to hire someone to replace that as I scale, I could do that if that's baked into the process. So regardless of, if I'm picking a product, the product's going to cost the customer at least $30 to $75. That's my lowest threshold, and that's probably the best way to operate, especially when you're starting, because if your coffers are lower, you can stock a little bit less, but product selection is huge. Product selection is also tied into your customer and market research. You need to understand volume, when it's being sold, seasonality, is it in demand? You need to select a really good product. It needs to be perfect. That means going through iterations and iterations and iterations and not forcing something that doesn't work. It should be hitting, and you should be spending, like I said, 90% of the time starting a business should be on the product, right? If that isn't the way it's working, you haven't selected or you haven't done the right amount of research into your product. I'm going to cut the product research off right there, because I'm going to tell you what the third pillar is and where you're going to get the most value and profit margin. And it's kind of coming from the second part. It's choosing the right product and having the proof and the confidence to then stock it physically in your own warehouse, at your own home, in your basement, wherever it's going to be. Drop shipping is a game of low margins. You will never change that. You can't. The business, just like, you'll never be able to do that, because if you had a high margin, then it oversits the margin of the cost of the original manufacturer to sell it in the market you're doing. So there's some macroeconomics behind, like, you might ask yourself, why do companies that are selling on Alibaba not just sell directly in the US? So there's taxes, customs, all those things. Represents about 30 to 40%, sometimes less, sometimes more. The reality is it's enough for them to say, not going to sell it direct to consumer in the United States. So what the dropshippers do is, in the United States, they pick up that margin. They say, I'm going to make a little bit of that money on that margin, and they're going to sell. You're never going to get more of that, because then it makes sense for the original manufacturer to come over and do that and just pay the fees required and the taxes and all that stuff and all the logistics, hire the employees they need to do to go direct to consumer in the United States. So drop shipping, you're never going to get that value. The only way that you get money out of drop shipping at a scale that makes sense is to sell products that cost a lot. $500 plus, $500 to $3,000. That's generally what I'm selling for drop shipping on my store. My bottom threshold, really, I've got probably maybe 10% of my drop shipping products are under $500, but I'm always hoping that those are being sold as pairs, and I'm upselling those specific products with other products with higher margins on them, so I can make sure my dollar coming out of it. But I'd say the average drop ship product on my store is probably between $800 and $2,000. So again, my margins on those 10-20%, but 10-20% on $800 to $2,000, which is still the same margin on my other stuff, and it gives me enough room to work in the weeds there. The only way you're going to get that 60-75% profit margins on products is stocking them yourselves. Again, like what's behind you guys. But you don't want to stock something until you have the social proof, you have the analytics, you have the need, you've proven that the product makes sense. So typically what people do, especially this is what the gurus do, is they drop ship a product until it makes sense, and then they bring it in-house. That's pretty much what you can do, but it's competitive. I took the other route. I did a lot of product and market research, spent all my time for free, and then stocked it immediately. I told myself, wasn't worth trying to play this no margin game, doing all that stuff. I'm going to put my time in for free because you're doing the same thing while not having to run a business or doing customer interaction or customer service or any of that stuff. Prove that there's the need, prove that I'm going to do it all, and then I took the chance and I stocked the product and I sold it, and that's what started it. And as volume goes up, my prices dropped. Some economies of scale don't change, but ultimately here I am, 60 to 75% profit margin. So stocking is really important, but that all comes down to doing the right research and all those things. The last thing here, I told you there are 3 pillars. I'm giving you the 4th because the 4th is so freaking important. It is your marketing strategy. And what's key in me getting 60 to 75% margins is I don't pay any advertising. I have a $0 advertising cost. A lot of you guys are going to be shocked by that because the industry says, like, you must advertise, you must pay for Google ads, you must pay for Facebook ads, you gotta be on Instagram advertising. For some stuff, I couldn't agree more. You have to. But if you pick your product successfully and you do really good product selection and you really have proof behind what you're doing and your product solves the problem, for the most part, you're not going to have any advertising costs. My costs are my time to produce social media content, which doesn't cost me any amount of money to do. I mean, other than the camera equipment, but I already had camera equipment and you could do it on your iPhone or whatever phone you have. The only cost is my time to produce content around it, and that content drives sales. I don't do anything else. I've never run ads for my business at all. And that's where your margins come back. So, that's pushing against a lot of what people do. No, you're not just going to be able to go to the hot list on Alibaba and peddle a product and create content around it because that's what everyone's doing. But if everyone's doing it, you're not going to be able to create a business and make money off of it in the first place. And that's something that isn't said a lot in the industry, which feels crazy, but that is the hard truth. So it all comes down to picking the right product, and then all the other things will fall into play, like not having to pay for advertising, being able to stock your own stuff, ship it out yourself. Increases some time, you've got to do a little bit more work, but my margins speak for themselves, and it's worth it. I don't mind filling a box, like all the boxes that are literally, like, I know you can't see my arm, that are literally right there, that tomorrow morning I need to wake up and put on the front of my house for USPS to pick up because I packed all those packages and they're going out to my customers. Worth my time when I have a 60 to 75% profit margin. So all with that, hopefully you guys gained some information here. I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed.